Yo, hey, it's your boys. It's Anime Parlay. It's Killer Cam. I'll let the rest of the crew just jump in. We're just getting right into this. We're speed running this
What up,
fucking thing.
y'all?
What
Peace and
up?
blessings. It's Wild and Free.
Yo, what up? It's Mugiwara Mike.
Bash Ketchum here. Let's get into this.
Okay, we don't need any more foreplay. Let's get into it. It's chapter 1152. We're talking about it. Obviously, we're talking about One Piece. You saw the awesome thumbnail that I haven't created yet. Um, I mean, I'll just do this because I got a lot of thoughts. I mean, overall, I think the chapter was it's like pretty good, right? Like I think last chapter we were like, okay, this chapter did everything that we needed it to do to get us where we need to go, and I think honestly, like the setup for a long flashback was needed, but I think maybe we really weren't expecting it at this point in time. With that, we probably get the confrontation between Luffy and Emu pretty soon, but that seems like it's going to take a while, but maybe we'll learn some cool things in the meantime. So, real quick, just want to get initial reactions. What did you guys think of the chapter?
I thought it was great. I enjoyed the fact that we are getting a flashback about, King Harold. That was I wasn't actually expecting to see this, to be honest. Like I thought maybe we might have gotten something a little closer, right? Like who he was in those final moments, but I didn't think we would get like full on flashbacks to like just times when he was ruling as a king. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as far as the flashback is concerned. I'm not sure how much time we'll have with it,
Sure.
but definitely intrigued by what was exposed during this last chapter. I also do love, that pivotal moment between Luffy and Loki, something that I was absolutely expecting, but still trying to figure out the logistics on in my head, same as the rest of the crew, clearly, because Sanji and Zoro were confused about how that could even logistically work. But yeah, overall, loved the chapter. Still an extension of like things to unfold. So we'll just see where it goes from here.
All right, who else?
It can logistically work if you got Frankie as a shipwright. He, he'll
I don't know
customize
what-
Well, one of
something, and
y'all actually pointed
yeah.
this out. I think it is going to be that owl thing that can shrink sizes down. I mean, I think that's probably what's going to happen if I were to guess.
Like you're thinking they're gonna shrink like Loki?
Yeah, I think so. I think that.
Interesting take for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I want to
How
get
would
to the
they
rest of
shrink
you
him?
guys', but no. So I mean, basically, just like they've taken the time to show us giant things can become small. Why? They're giants. Why? Like, why do we need to see that? I think it is kind of like there is a technology or magic or whatever that allows basically for the inclusion of Loki on the crew. I think that's what's probably going to happen, and maybe it's some kind of like technological belt or something like that he can adjust his size when needed. But I do think that if Loki ends up on the crew, that'll be a part of it. But either Bash or Moogie, I want to get you guys' thoughts.
Go ahead, Moogs.
I thought it was a good chapter, but I also need to say there's certain things in it that got under my skin with Zoro and Sanji. I'm sure we're gonna touch on that. It's gonna be a main point tonight. I don't think Loki's gonna join the crew. Just adding that in there. He already said he would never work under somebody, and I just think he's too much of a beast. But yeah, a chapter where I get Loki, I like it a lot. So I thought this was a really good chapter. We got a little bit of a confirmation on how to fight the God Knights, and I'm super stoked to see Harold's background.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So we don't need to rehash obviously what happened within the chapter.
What about Bash?
A couple things. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Bash. Go ahead, bro.
No, you're good. I thought the chapter was good. I don't think it's the best chapter ever after post time skip, but I think it was a good chapter as far as like bringing a lot of things together, as far as some lore that that we foreshadowed in the past as to what's going to happen with Loki and how. I think the Zoro Sanji thing was cool, which I know we're about to get into, so I'll just save my take on that for when we talk about it. And the flashbacks were pretty exciting. I'm just excited to see how this is all gonna get drawn together in the next couple of chapters. But I liked it overall. Go ahead, Killa.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, just a couple notes. Yeah. I mean, I think the chapter was pretty good. I mean, I think the reason why is because the bar is. Can we just get back to Loki and Luffy? Right. I think people have been kind of waiting for
Yeah.
that for a little bit. Obviously, things were kind of heating up
Yeah.
on the upper levels of Elbaf, but people have been asking, like, we haven't seen Luffy or Loki for several chapters now, and when they're basically are shown, they're basically just kind of like hanging out and eating, and kind of sort of slash little minor flashback with Hardin arguing with Loki, and we see that Loki was obviously kind of like a apprentice sort of, or at least aspiring apprentice of Rocks. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like I said, it's a pretty good chapter. There's a lot of issues that I have with it though, and not anything that like makes the chapter bad, but I think there are elements of Oda's writing where he introduces things that kind of break the continuity. And we've talked about this a little bit prior to the recording, but we'll get into it. One thing I will say this is like, can we get no more Yamato? Like, I am so sick and tired of the storyline. Like, I feel like every week I'm saying the exact same thing again, which is like, when is this going to end? It just keeps going on and on. I feel like I almost want to, and I probably will for this video, I'm going to put the cover story panels like across the screen so that you can see they almost look exactly the same. I am so sick and tired of just nothing really is happening. She's like giving a hat and like hugging a child and like just I don't care. The only person I care about to some degree is really Momonosuke, and it doesn't seem like we're going to see him anytime soon. So I don't know why we're focusing so hard on Yamato. I don't want to put a lot of time into this, but like this is an enduring and consistent vendetta that I have against this particular cover story. Nothing's happening, and I want it to end.
Yeah, it's boring.
Hilarious.
It's all I've ever known since I started reading the manga. It's that cover story. So has there been
I know,
other
yeah, it's
cover
crazy.
stories?
Yeah.
Or
Oh yeah,
I don't
there
know.
were definitely there were some goated cover stories for sure. But I mean, it actually
Yeah.
took me a while to pay attention to the cover stories enough to even give them the kind of space that they now occupy. Because I feel like now within the conversations, they are ever more prominent, right? Not just between us, but within the One Piece community as a whole. And I think that was only because of when the cover stories really started to, heat up, like with the whole, what's his name, Kuzan
Yeah, that's
and the
where
Blackbeard stuff.
That's where it got the
That's where
coolest.
Yeah, that
went
was
into that,
so
huh?
sick.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so one thing that I will say, and again, just to, I don't want to talk about this too long, but basically just to underscore the reason why we're comparing this particular cover story and the lack of development is because cover stories traditionally, right? Because you have like the Oda request where like some random kid in Japan will ask Oda to draw something interesting or unique or, kind of surreal in the style of One Piece. So it'll be like, Robin has tea with a bunch of mice or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the other cover stories that follow an actual narrative plot, this is not like non-canon filler. This is like real canon that is happening outside of the main story. And to be honest, we don't really get those opportunities. I mean, you get them in arcs like The Reverie, or in the case of Egghead, more specifically, when we would kind of flash over to see, hey, what's going on with Shanks and Kid? What's going on with Law and Blackbeard, right? Those are pretty rare occurrences. So the only other times that we get outside of the main thrust of our characters being the Straw Hats is really these cover stories. It's to understand kind of what's going on. Sometimes it's an epilogue for villains or for side characters, or in the case of even Jinbei went on in a whole little cover story where he was finding, I think one of the poneglyphs, it's like a blue poneglyph, that I think he eventually brought down to either Fishman Island or, maneuvered it in a way or whatever where Robin was basically able to see it. But the point being is like these cover stories are actually pretty fertile ground for like good storytelling. And I don't know, again, not to belabor this point, but what's going on in Wano right now, particularly when it's not focused on Momonosuke and his, kind of quick maturation to be the shogun of the country, just to see Yamato basically do like an Odin 2 Electric Boogaloo where like she just tries to do all the things that Odin did. It's just kind of lame. But let's get into the actual chapter. Okay, so one thing that I want to point out is like, when Luffy makes the promise to, in this case, Copper, and says, don't worry, I'm going to go save Colin. I'll save everybody. Like, I'm strong. I'll whoop him. Like, I got this. what made like basically where my head goes to is like, dude, you just said that to Sentomaru in Egghead Island about Vegapunk, and then he got stabbed and then shot with a laser. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I know that, like, you know, it's kind of the main character where it's like, you know, they say they're gonna do something, they have plot armor because of their main character, and then they do it. But like, that's an obvious example of like Luffy promising somebody that he was gonna do something and then failing to do that. And you can make the argument, well, you know, actually Vegapunk said it was fine and Vegapunk's gonna resurrect or whatever. But like, either way, Vegapunk still got killed. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I honestly feel like maybe that wasn't a smart idea for Oda to do, at least not in that way. Because now every time Luffy says like, I'm gonna go save somebody, I'm like, really? Really? Are you?
Really?
Are you actually? Are you really? Like,
That's hilarious.
yeah.
I mean, I truly feel that when Luffy says that, he believes it, and then he's gonna do everything in his power to save the kids or to save Vegapunk. You know,
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
and Vegapunk isn't fully dead. He's still living on through his other satellites.
Yeah, but I mean, let's just be honest. Luffy got very lucky with that. You know, just because like Vegapunk has the technology to revive himself, right? But it's like, Luffy, if that was it, like Vegapunk would be dead. And I'll even throw a little bit of the blame on Sanji, because Sanji is like,
just gonna say
Luffy
that.
Sure.
Luffy deputized Sanji like, hey, all right, take care of my old man. Like, I'm gonna handle like this big battle. I'm gonna take care of Saturn. And then, you know, Sanji really just fails miserably.
Dropped
And
the ball.
yeah,
Really
yeah.
dropped the
Like,
ball there.
Basically gets him 2 fatal blows back to back. Okay, so aside from
Insane.
that, I also thought, I don't know, I mean, like, and let's just break here, because I know there's a lot of thoughts on this, and I do want to get you guys' thoughts. Specifically Moogie's. What the hell is going on with main characters not understanding their own powers in this series?
Oh, yeah.
We've got 2 prime examples, maybe 3 if you count Sanji. But let's just stick with the 2. Zoro specifically, and then basically Loki. They both don't seem to understand. And maybe Loki understands he has Conqueror's Haki. He just doesn't know that it's effective against God's Knights. It's like, oh, Scopper, you reminded me. You put it into words like what I couldn't describe, but whatever, right?
Well, I'm also
Zoro's-
going to count Luffy as well from the last chapter, where he's like, how
Yeah.
did I know that was Chopper? Like,
Yes,
all
for
that
sure.
stuff like that. Like, it's all in the
Yeah.
same realm. It's like, are we really playing
every-
this every time?
And every moment they try to educate him on what Gear 5 actually is. He's like, huh? Nope, can't hear you.
Yeah,
He's like, what do you mean? I just feel free. It's like, oh, whatever. My free form. Dude, I don't know, man. Like, okay, I'll just say like this. Why are we walking back a confirmed example of not just Conqueror's Haki? Because let's be honest, Kaido tells him that. And he tells him that specifically before Zoro passes out. Before anybody in the comments says, well, Zoro was on the verge of passing out and didn't hear him. No, like Zoro says, what are you talking
People
about?
saying
I don't have
that.
He
Conqueror's Haki.
responded. Yeah,
He responds. And then he passes out.
Yeah.
After that, he's fighting King. He uses advanced Conqueror's Haki when he is fighting King. He works it out. You can call it like battle tactics, battle, you know, hockey blooming, whatever.
Instincts, intuition.
He finds out how to apply. This is an advanced technique that like Luffy had to get basically KO'd fighting Kaido to understand, right? Zoro summons whatever the, you know, martial arts, cosmic gods, whatever, to like recognize, okay, I can apply basically like Conqueror's Haki to my blades in order to, you know, make stronger cuts, whatever you want to call it, right?
Really, he
I
just
don't-
went plus ultra.
Yeah.
On some
I
My
don't
Hero type.
understand how or why Oda would then say Zoro doesn't know that he has Conqueror's Haki despite being told explicitly by Kaido, despite using like the advanced version of I mean, it's just silly. And then, sorry, one last thing. To act as though, because it's not like saying that Zoro doesn't know that he has or let me phrase this. He doesn't know what Conqueror's Haki is or what it looks like. He does, because when Luffy comes down to Fishman Island and then knocks out like, you know, I think it's like 100,000 fishmen or something like that with just like a burst of Conqueror's Haki. Zoro specifically says in that moment, 100,000, like, you know, if you did anything less than that, you wouldn't be our captain. Like, he understands how Conqueror's Haki works. He's seen it. He understands it. We can assume that maybe I don't know, if Mihawk has it, he probably learned maybe about it from Mihawk, if not learning it from Mihawk. But like the idea that Zoro, particularly this far into the series, is confused about what powers he has. If he doesn't feel it, he obviously can manipulate and knows hockey. So this question of like, how do you not know, is like very immersion breaking. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on that.
I agree with that. It was a weird take. I wasn't expecting him to respond in that way. I'm not exactly sure why Oda pulled that card, but at this point, now all he can do is try to resolve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your take on that, Moogie?
That was something in this chapter that really bothered me, and we talked about a lot of this like offline in our own little group chat, but I thought it was just like that is something that like if you were to rephrase it, like it's just one approach. Like he was like, "Oh, my bad. Like I didn't know," which is just such like flippant disregard to like his lack of growth and like understanding of his power level. Like they could have just been like he could have been like, "I had a feeling I had something like that, but I just haven't been able to grasp it." Boom. Like such a better chapter just with like that the way that he flippantly disregards it, it just ruined it for me. You know, like it would be just a simple like change of words, but also Luffy, him being able to see it now, we were talking about that, Cam, just out of nowhere he's like, "Oh, what do you mean, Zoro? You have advanced Conqueror's Haki."
Right.
And they've just never talked about it before, the craziest power that they could possibly have. And they just, he's never decided to mention to Zoro, like, "Hey, Zoro, you're pretty strong now. What's up?" But he can literally see it on his body, like oozing out of him.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on here, you guys? Like, you're the two, like, top people in the Straw Hats and your Emperor's crew. Like, I don't know. But
yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I don't see a problem with it. It didn't bother me at all. Reason being is because I personally think that this is just part of their characters. Like Luffy and Zoro are very aloof people. They're kind of go with the flow characters, if you will. I can see how it is annoying. However, Zoro in particular is a master of only a few things, and Scopper used the word meticulous in the translation, that he was kind of pissed that Zoro didn't know, so he needed to be more meticulous about his power so that he can then learn it and get stronger. My thing is that I mean, Zoro and Luffy are just those types of people where they just kind of, they just kind of go with the flow of things. So for them to not know, or for Zoro to not know he had Conqueror's Haki all along is, yeah, it's kind of weird, but to me it's part of his character design, and
I mean,
I don't have an issue with it.
I understand where you're coming from, but also at the same time, it just feels like a missed opportunity, or it's more so of like you're dumbing down our two primary characters more than they need to be dumbed down. Whereas like we know that Zoro has battle intelligence and that he has spent a lot of time training and is very concerned with his own strength and getting stronger. Same with Luffy. We have seen him, especially in Wano with the whole Rio training and how
Mhm.
intentional he was about that. It's not to say that we haven't been exposed to our two primary characters having battle intelligence and an understanding and awareness of the fact that they need to strengthen themselves and understand the powers that they have. I'm glad that he at least acknowledged it as just like, oh yeah, he knows what Conqueror's Haki is. He just didn't know that he himself had it. Because if he was completely like, oh, what's Conqueror's Haki? I would have flipped out. I'm not gonna lie to you. That would have thrown me off. But I do think that Zoro just kind of like having that response right now. I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to instill within us for what's about to unfold. Like, does this mean that now that he's aware, he's going to become exponentially stronger? Like, just because he was able to put two and two together to say, oh, this power that I've been inadvertently or unconsciously using is actually Conqueror's Haki. And now because I know that's what it is, I can use it better. right? You see what I'm saying? Like, what is the purpose of them addressing it in this way? So that's what I'm more interested in seeing, is how he will start to respond from this after consciously knowing that it is Conqueror's Hockey when he goes into his next battle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a weird choice for Oda to make, in my opinion, which is like, why would you? You didn't need to confirm that Zoro has Conqueror's Haki. We already knew that. You gave us two examples of it. So I don't really know why you would take the time, other than to basically illustrate from an old head, this guy is also really strong and has potential, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that we needed that, because we as the viewers or readers have seen it and know it. So I guess I just don't know why you need that cosign from Scopper directly, and then specifically another cosign from Luffy. Like, man, it's crazy. It's flowing right out of you. Like, it's just weird. And then even still, like, even the idea of it's flowing seems to imply, like, are you saying it's like visible? Can you feel it? Like, because now we're kind of getting into like this chakra-esque Nen kind of category of hockey, which
Sure.
again, just it, like, I think if you're doing that in the anime, where, like, you know, they obviously colorize it and kind of make it more prominent, sure, maybe. I mean, I'm really not even a fan of that in the anime, but like, I just don't know why we needed that. I don't know why that was necessary. But
I mean, they do actually represent it that way in the anime.
I mean, they do, but they
when it
don't
is...
represent it in the manga like that. So again, like, when we're talking
visible.
about like the source material, where like it doesn't really, like, we don't visually see that unless it is, I guess in some cases, like the black lightning effect or whatever.
Yeah,
I just
we've
thought that
already
was
addressed
weird.
how
Yeah.
that's inconsistent, because
Yeah.
sometimes the black lightnings show up in a traditional
Yes.
armament hockey strike versus Conqueror's Hockey.
Yes.
And I get where you're coming from with that. One thing that you brought up that I wanted to actually touch on is that I think this moment would have made so much more sense. Like, I wouldn't have minded Zoro's interaction. I wouldn't have minded the way Scopper called it out. I wouldn't have minded how Luffy responded to it, if this moment was actually meant to address a latent potential within Sanji, right? Like, if Scopper was just kind of going around and assessing everybody to say, okay, cool, Luffy has it. Zoro, I see that you have it. It's all right if you're a little ignorant about it. And also, I feel a little bit of latent energy here that could awaken, you know, Conqueror's Hockey, right? If he was able to acknowledge that within, like, Sanji and maybe Harden even, that would have made this moment exponentially more meaningful to me. And I would have likely overlooked the whole Zoro being ignorant thing about it.
Well, I think that's what it could be leading up to, which is why Sanji was such a big part of that back and forth. And Scopper was kind of ignoring him. And he's like, well, do I have it? Or he's like wanting to know like what his power up is. But essentially, Sanji should have Conqueror's Hockey, or he should awaken it at some point. Because if Luffy's to be the Pirate King and Roger was the Pirate King and he had his left and right that had Conqueror's Hockey, then why shouldn't Sanji have his? And maybe that's segueing into Sanji unlocking his Conqueror's Hockey.
It definitely leaves an open opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless, right? I mean, here's the thing, right? We didn't get an answer from Scopper. So what does that mean? It's not a yes, it's a no, it's a Schrodinger's Conqueror's Hockey.
It's like not even listening to Sanji,
You know what I
bro.
mean? So it's like,
Not at all.
until it's confirmed yes or no, and obviously it's Sanji, so we probably will get the confirmation in this arc. It's just one of those things where, like, obviously it is setting up, you know, again, that kind of rivalry between the two, where, like, you know, obviously in this case Zoro gets confirmed. We're still waiting on Sanji. Sanji has something to prove. We'll see that obviously bloom or come to fruition. I would say later in the arc. But yeah, just to kind of move forward a little bit, because there's a couple other things I want to kind of bring you guys just to kind of get your thoughts on it. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I didn't care for that. Didn't care for, like, Loki not even understanding. It's like, Loki, you have Conqueror's Hockey. You've dealt with the Gods Knights before. Don't really know how you don't know that, but that's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, like, even the introduction of, like, Luffy inviting Loki to the crew, I know that like Luffy does it in different ways a lot of the times. I just don't know why it would be so flippant in this particular case. And what I mean when I say that is like Luffy basically says it as a prerequisite because for whatever reason he's obsessed with Loki. He just thinks he's really cool. He's like big. He wants to see him fight, whatever. Luffy basically goes, "Hey, join my crew." Like, and then you'll like after that, Harden he'll be able to leave, right? And like, I know that Luffy asked like a lot of different people to join the crew for like various reasons. I just felt like I don't know. I just for a character like this who probably will end up on the crew, it just seemed like kind of silly. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't really a rationale or a reason behind it. It was just like, I think you're cool, and if this is the only way to free you, then yeah, we'll just use that as like an opportunity. And it seems to kind of discredit, really the meaning behind that invite. And I know that like sometimes Luffy just does it like it's like made as a joke, right? But I don't know. I just feel like when it has been accepted later on, it's never really kind of made this flippantly. Like I think of examples where it's like, obviously he asked Jinbei in all seriousness. He asked Brook. After hearing Brook's story and wanting to basically have him on the crew, particularly as like a role player, as a musician, he just thought he was funny, thought he was interesting, he wanted to help him, and then asked him to be in the crew, like basically as soon as he meets him. And then Brook accepts. I don't know if you guys remember this. He accepts in that moment.
He's like,
And then
okay.
obviously like the other kind of examples, I mean, it's like Luffy doesn't really normally just throw that out there flippantly with the expectation that they will eventually join the crew. Normally, if he throws it out there, it's kind of a joke, and we know that they're not going to join the crew. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
We overdue for a crew member at addition, aren't we?
Possibly. I don't know. At this point, it's like we're either going to get one or just not. And Oda is going to keep teasing us in this way until it's all over. Like, I think we'll have a bunch of honorary Straw Hats, right? Like,
Yeah.
your Momonosuke, your Yamato, Kinemon, Vivi. Now, Loki, I think, could end up in that potential category of honorary Straw Hats. But, I mean, I don't know. I would find it interesting if he did kind of become somewhat of an official crewmate. And when I say somewhat, I'm thinking about Odin, how he traveled with both, Goldie Roger pirates
Sure.
and the Whitebeard pirates. And potentially it's something like that where we see like a temporary, it's not like an alliance, but like a joining of the crew for a time to have an objective met. And we already know that they are very close to the end of their journey in regards to what they need to accomplish in order for Luffy to become the Pirate King. And so I could understandably see how Loki may or may not become an official Straw Hat to where it's like, oh, he just stays with them indefinitely. But I could see a period of time where he travels with them or something to that effect to accomplish an end goal.
I for some reason think he's going to be the king of Elbaf or whatever happens after Elbaf. And kind
It's a
of
good take too.
because I think
You're talking about
Harold's going to
Harden?
be the
He's talking about Loki.
I think
I
Harden's
don't
going to
think
be a
so.
pirate.
You think so? Even
Nah,
though he
'cause
wants to be king of the
Harden
pirates? Or
specifically
king
has
of
said
the
he wants
giants?
to be the king, and I think that specifically given that he feels like a chip on his shoulder because he's not one of the ancient race of giants or whatever. I think that yeah, like he's explicitly mentioned his dream, particularly in this arc. I see that happening. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like Loki. He might not be the king, but I don't really know what his motivation is going to be after. But I just see him kind of like being a version of like a Luffy, where they are rivals. But I wouldn't see him joining like Luffy's crew,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
The only reason why I feel like he has potential to join right now is because he has no direct responsibilities or motives right now in this moment, right? Like he's been chained up for God knows how many years, right? And there is a sense of haplessness and a loss of purpose within that, right? Where it's like you have the baggage of your entire past to get over, right? Like that's PTSD, not just for you, but your entire nation. They have to figure out how are they going to reconcile your existence if Luffy is to let you free or if this whole situation unfolds and you remain unchained, right? And so there is that aspect of how does Loki even reconcile his place within Elbaf once these events have concluded, right? and especially with Hardin wanting to be the king, I just feel as though it does give space and gravity to Loki requiring some kind of leave of absence from Elbaf.
Yeah, or he could be like some sort of co king with Hardin or something like that. But I definitely believe that Oda's teeing it up for a redemption story for Loki.
Oh yeah,
That he didn't do all these bad things, and we're gonna see that he's somewhat of a hero. So I'm seeing that play out as
yeah.
well. I know you're gonna say something, Killer Cam. Go ahead.
No, I guess I'm just gonna say like, I do think Loki's gonna join the crew. I didn't always think that. I think specifically before, because like Luffy's obsessed with him, right? Like since we've
Yeah.
seen their
Yeah, he
interactions,
is.
Luffy is just like, this guy's awesome. Like I think he's a good guy. Like it's just been telegraphed so hard that one, Loki's not as bad as he seems, or as we've been led to believe. But then two, Luffy believes in him for whatever reason, right? So I think the idea of Luffy extending the invitation to join the crew, I think that obviously the Elbaf citizenry don't really care for Loki, right? And probably would be fine exiling him, even if we do find out that Loki is not as guilty as maybe they believe. But yeah, I don't know. I just also think like, I don't know. I mean, like, I think the thing that sets people off when they think of like who's next to join the crew, and sometimes I think a lot of the fans jump the gun. Like Carrot is a perfect example of that. I think they just thought girl and
Facts.
Mink, and then make that work somehow. But
She
I
fell
do
off.
think when Oda specifically puts so much time into like hyping a character and giving them like a really cool character design, like I think people felt justified in saying like Yamato will probably be the next Straw Hat. I mean, like Oda really put a lot of time into connecting her with Luffy and like the connection with Ace and like the connection with Kaido, and then wanting to leave and be a pirate and
And
be free.
badass character
like,
design.
exactly, and strong and like a female. So like I think a lot of people felt justifiably like, oh, okay, like they will be the next Straw Hat. Like, we're overdue for a girl. They're strong. They're not going to be weak, whatever. And then I think Oda maybe just said like, I don't know, maybe not this one. Maybe not this time, right? Because maybe I want to add another one, right? Or whatever reason, or just it's too predictable, whatever, right? But Loki feels good to me. I mean, I do think that whatever the mechanism is, I think specifically with Zoro and Sanji calling out, how is that going to work logistically instead of just saying like, what are you doing? Like he's a bad guy, or like you're too gung-ho to just invite anybody to the crew, whatever. I think specifically that aspect of he's too big, right? Because Sanji goes, he's going to eat too much food. Zoro goes, he's not going to be able to fit on the ship. I think, again, we have our answer, which is whatever that owl thing is that can make things smaller, they're just going to figure out a way to make him smaller. He'll still be big on the ship, right? But, like,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like Oda has gone out of his way to emphasize that the size won't work. But if we can mess with the size, then we're good. And we have a method to mess with the size. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Valid.
Last thing, I mean, obviously, there's little things to talk about in relation to the backstory that we get, and Shanks potentially having a abyss arm or whatever, right? Specifically because we see him before he loses the arm hanging out with Scopper.
Got a little tattoo. Cute little tattoo.
Yeah,
It was a subtle touch too.
If you guys
it wasn't a
wanna
major panel.
yeah, and it's not a very big tattoo. It's not like this crazy.
Before
like, sleeve
before
or
we
something.
get into that part, Killer
Yeah.
Cam, I just want to say I know it may be a normal thing in Japan, but none of you guys ever asked me to take a bath with you. All right, because I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not bathing
No.
with
It
y'all.
actually is really
Okay.
like,
What the
common.
hell?
Yeah, they do it nude too.
Man.
So I don't know. Maybe
That's a very common thing in Japan.
I think-
Yeah,
I
I
think-
figured that. But
if the channel ever gets big enough, we will go to Japan, and we definitely will do that. So I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
we'll do the pod out of the bathhouse in Japan.
We're gonna
That's
do it
hilarious.
at a bathhouse.
Okay.
Funny.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, but like, okay, so we get this kind of flashback within a flashback. Obviously it's Shanks talking with Scopper. He has his arm. We can get into that if you guys want. I don't really care. I mean, I think the idea that like Shanks obviously is in the family of who we now know are God's Knights. The idea that he would have like an abyss tattoo doesn't shock me at all. Right? It's just like,
Right.
who cares?
That's crazy.
I think a lot of people are talking about like Shanks being the person who was supposed to be the next kind of like it guy, and then kind of deferring that and giving it to Luffy.
For sure.
I also don't think it's necessarily
Oh,
that groundbreaking, because we've known since the very beginning of the series that Shanks has specifically said that he gave his arm for the sake of the next generation. So like, it's not really new information, right?
Right.
And then we get into
But
the flash.
did he do that knowing that it would get rid of the abyssal tattoo to sever his connection with Emu?
That's the importance of this.
I think
I guess
that's a
my thing is
cop-out.
like he could have cut his arm off at any time. You get what I'm saying?
could
Like,
have.
So
But
it
maybe
didn't
this was
seem.
just a convenient moment.
But I think
This was
that takes
at the
away
early
though.
onset.
But that takes away from the act of basically sacrificing his arm to inspire Luffy. Because if you're gonna play it where it's like, oh well, he actually did it to like, like just practically get rid of the arm. It's like, well, I mean, that just takes away from the impact that he was trying to instill in Luffy. Like, obviously he could have killed the Sea King. He's strong enough to do that. But he wanted Luffy to know, like, I'm willing to kind of sacrifice for you because I believe in you and because I think that you can be, whoever you want to be, the next, pirate king or next great pirate or whatever. Like, I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I think if people are making the argument, oh, well, he sacrificed his arm and also he just needed to get rid of it. I feel like that takes away from like the thematic and the meaning. And hopefully that's not something that Oda suggests, because I think it'd be very counterproductive to that moment. But
I don't think so. I don't see how it influences the impact at all. Like I think
well, I mean,
that
in one case you have,
it's nice
I have
to
one reason
kill two
for
birds
giving
with
my
one stone.
arm. Well, I think in one case you have one reason for giving your arm, and then in this other case you have two. You get what I'm saying? I think that inherently weakens like the focal point of why he sacrificed his arm to inspire Luffy.
That's an interesting take, because usually the way that I perceive things personally is like when you have more than one reason to take an action, it only strengthens the reasoning behind the action.
But they're
right?
separate
Not
reasons.
Diminishes it.
One is
Right. That's what I'm
one
saying.
is
Like,
out
I
of
don't think that
like,
having multiple reasons to
Yeah.
take an action diminishes the value of any of those reasons.
Okay,
You
but
see
let
what
me
I'm
give it
saying?
like this. Okay, so Mr. Wilder Free, if I were to say I'm gonna give you $100 because I love you, I care about you, I want you to have a good weekend, go see a movie, go eat some dinner, whatever, right? And then I say
Take a
I
bath.
gave you that $100 because of that, and also because I just needed to do like a little like tax write off and make a little donation or something like that. Like that would kind of weaken it, right? Like there's one that's selfless,
Not to me.
and then there's
I'd be like, I appreciate it.
yeah, but I mean, there's a reason that is selfless, and then there's a reason that is selfish, right? And then I think when you
Which is
combine
fair.
both of those together, it does kind of diminish the selflessness.
I agree with that.
Well, if
that
you're
was a
saying
good
it-
off the dome analogy. Good job.
Oh, thank
It
you.
was a good off the dome
was.
analogy. And if you're saying that in such a way that you mean that it diminishes the perspective of Shanks, then sure. I don't mind that take, because I think that it's worth that. I think it's worth us questioning, like, well, what are Shanks's motives really? Like, what was the situation? Why did he decide at that moment to have his arm bitten off instead of just chopping it off himself? Right? And I think that the importance of this panel really comes about because the conversation started to unfold way before we saw this scene. And I think that this is actually a bit of a moniker or a representation that Oda has been listening to that zeitgeist, or maybe he had that plan all along. But in my mind, I feel like he's probably been paying a little bit of attention to what's been happening in the One Piece community and the conversations that have been unfolding about it. And the reason why I say that is because it was such a subtle touch in this panel. Like, it's relatively small. It's not a major panel, but people get to zoom in on that to see what's happening there. And it was just a nice nod, I think, to the community to say, okay, hey, you all had theories about this. Let me give a little bit more to fuel, exactly what you all are thinking about this arm so that you can close the loop yourself. He didn't call any major attention to it.
Yeah.
He didn't have Scopper mention it. He didn't have Shanks talk about it. It was just, oh, here, little homage to the theories you all are cooking up.
I hope he never confirms it, but fair, like in the sense of I'm gonna give you like a little, egg, teaser egg, whatever kind of like thing. I'll throw it out here. Yeah, one thing that I want to mention just to kind of like get us, kind of towards the end of this chapter. So we leave that flashback with Shanks and Scopper
Scopper.
basically just kind of hanging out as
Ripley
Loki.
was there too.
Yeah, and Ripley as basically the death of Harold takes place, right? From what we see that he's cloaked in some kind of black silhouette. I think we can reasonably assume, since there is a abyss circle in the throne room, that either he had a relationship with the world government, or he was reversing basically, right? And that they had to kill him, or at least try to take him down. And then Loki eventually kind of does it. Two things that I want to point out, and one is just a mention, but the other one is more speculation. So the first one is, we then flash back to basically Harold's, I guess, youth, right? He's 45 years old. Obviously, we get the little Oda box or whatever, that's like 15, and like, giant Viking kind of time, or giant
giant years,
age years, right? Yeah, thank you. But then we also get this kind of interesting teaser of like a forbidden devil fruit that is passed down, and somebody's standing over it, right, in silhouette, about to eat it. And I think that person is Loki. And I want to get you guys' thoughts in terms of what you think that devil fruit is, specifically as it relates to why Loki thinks he's Nika.
One, I don't think that was Loki at all.
I don't either.
I don't think that Loki made a finishing blow on King Harold either.
Oh, you think it's Gomu Gomu no Mi, maybe?
I think that
Could be Luffy's devil.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably something like the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or the devil fruit that Loki now has.
Interesting. But you said that you don't think it was Loki in front of the.
I don't think that it was Loki in the silhouette.
Wait,
who was
how could that
approaching
possibly be the Gomu Gomu no Mi?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's the Gomu Gomu no Mi, because
just under 20 years ago.
It was like 14 years ago, which would
put
Luffy at like what, 4 or
doesn't make
5?
sense.
It would also explain how
Because
Shanks was able to get it.
No, Shanks
Shanks
got it
is
from
there.
Who's Who. Shanks stole it from
You're right.
Who's Who.
Shanks stole it. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
So
Well, we don't know if Who's Who is present in this moment
Moogie is
in
our
Elbaf.
resident historian. Thank you, Moogie.
So, but that's the thing. We don't know how that situation transpired. What
Right.
we know is that Who's Who had it in cargo,
Sure.
right? And so
Yeah.
it's probably Who's Who in this image. We don't know that, right? It could
Maybe.
be Who's Who in the silhouette. CP9,
Who's a God's
CP.
Night?
Well, I don't know about that much,
Nah,
but
I'm
you know,
just kidding.
the CP agencies, the Cypher Pole could have been involved in some way with this coup, because King Harold is, being massacred as we first see him in this silhouette. We don't understand the implications of that moment just yet, and so it could be a mixture of things. It could be something that was incited by CP, some of the Cypher Pole agents or anyone else involved in this moment, the gods, the knights, whatever it is.
Sure.
But I do not think that it is Loki standing in front of that fruit. I do think that it is possibly either Loki's devil fruit that he currently has, or the Gomu Gomu no Mi.
It's kind of crazy
One
to
of
think
those
about
two.
this, like, just in the sense of, and I want to wrap this up pretty quickly, so I want to get to like final thoughts, but like, I do kind of wonder, it's like, the giants just eat tiny little, like, very small
fruit.
devil fruits, you know what I mean? Like, how does that actually
Yeah.
work? Like, they're giant, they're huge. Like,
Probably.
how are they finding like the Ope Ope no Mi, which is like, like that big in like a human's hands? You know what I mean? Like,
That point makes me realize that it wasn't Loki in the panel, because it's in a little treasure chest, and we know that devil fruits aren't giant size. And
Right.
the silhouette we saw was human size. So
yeah, I mean, well, supposedly they
to
pass
me-
him down, but the reason I think it could be Loki is because I think Loki is turned.
a good
I think
point.
there are witnesses who see Loki go crazy. That's what I think. I think other than that, it's like, I don't think people just seeing a whole bunch of dead bodies and then Loki standing there like, I didn't do it, would be like, no, you did it. I think Loki was probably turned in some way. That's what I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe I'm
by
wrong.
Emu. By Emu.
Yeah, sure,
did
sure,
Domi
sure.
reverse
Maybe.
and
Maybe.
then like, kill him.
But
Yeah,
like, I
think that Loki went crazy on those people
Yes.
who killed Harold.
Yes, I think Loki is going to be shown with like
Yeah.
blood on his hands, right? Like caught in the act, like caught red-handed, whatever. Even though he didn't do it or wasn't in control of himself. And I think that in that moment, we know that Loki probably has a really dope devil fruit. We just don't know what it is. I would not be surprised if like that specific forbidden devil fruit that is locked away or whatever, Loki is subsumed by whatever's possessing him and then eats it. I don't know. That's just my take. I'm probably wrong. I don't have a good track record on
Sea
these kind of
Prism
things.
Stones didn't seem to
Mr. Waterfree
affect
does
Loki how it does like a normal Devil Fruit user, right?
Mm.
Did y'all notice that too? With the Sea
Yeah, I
Prism
mean-
Stone handcuffs?
Yeah,
You said they
he
don't-
Was,
they do not,
He
or
was
they
mainly
didn't?
just like restrained, but he
He was
wasn't
restrained,
like
but it
weakened.
didn't like constrict his powers. Yeah, and we don't know
Yeah.
what his Devil Fruit is, but maybe he never ate a Devil Fruit. Maybe he lied about it, and it was Luffy's fruit, who Shanks later got from Husu.
I think he ate it, but I think he's showing that if you have the physical strength, you can overpower. Not necessarily fully, but like at least enough to stand up. Okay,
I'm
let's get
also-
final thoughts.
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
With like Loki, sorry, I know this is totally off, but this is just another chapter where it goes back in time and you see Loki with bandages over his eyes, and he's just had
Yeah.
them from when he was a kid. And I just think that's something that's really letting me down because I'm really looking forward to seeing what these eyes are and what's going on. But
It's
I
gonna be
just,
Doflamingo all over again.
I just don't think I'm
That's
gonna
hilarious.
see, man. So
Yeah.
that makes me
It's just-
upset.
It's just cool. It's cool
Yikes.
for the sake of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, final thoughts. Let's get out of here. I don't know. Like I said, I think pretty good chapter. I'm glad that we're not on break. I mean, who's gonna say? I mean, I think the chapter's probably gonna be fully in flashback territory, but maybe not.
Yeah.
But I think it probably will.
Yeah. 2 flashbacks.
I don't know what we'll get out of it. I mean, I think even going into a flashback, I think is a little surprising, specifically everything that's going on right, like on the upper levels of Elbaf. But what do you guys think? What do you think we'll get? More from Shanks? More from Harold? What's the point of Harold's backstory? What do you think we'll get?
I don't think we'll get more of Shanks. I think we'll definitely get more of Harold. Something else that I feel like we kind of skipped over as well was like there was a moment like where it's like acknowledging, oh, this was the day that Harold got killed and there was
Yeah.
a massacre. But in that little brief panel, there also seems to be like Conqueror's Hockey Lightning kind of flashing off. So that could be an indication of Loki when he snapped or something to that effect.
Or emo, because they said it was like they felt a weird hockey. Like Scopper says that as
Right.
they're going into the flashback.
Yeah. So it could absolutely be a emu situation there too. Very good point, because with the reverse eye kind of scenarios that could unfold here, I could see how that might happen. I think that we will for sure get more of this flashback. I think we won't spend too much time with Harold at age 45. I think we'll just kind of see a bit of his antics and maybe something that causes him to shift or make a deal with the devil. The, world government, the Mary Joie situation. I think we might get to see that in this next chapter.
Well, one thing I will say just to add in is like I think we're being led to see a direct parallel between basically the way that, let's say, Harold was shown, right, or acted as, he's specifically called out as being a lowlife, right? I think we are getting a direct parallel between Harold in his youth and Loki, right? So what we will eventually see is we will see Harold probably be redeemed in some way. Maybe he falls in love or whatever. But I think that he's ultimately the person who ripped his own horns off, right? And then trying to push Elbaf into a pacifist kind of culture, right? I would not be surprised if, we get like some sort of obviously rehabilitation of Loki's character as a parallel to Harold's. But
Yeah.
whoever's got additional thoughts.
I was gonna just say I think this flashback is gonna be like basically the background of Harold up until the point where he meets the world government, touching on what you guys said, whatever turns him and moves him to make the decision to move his country to being more of a pacifist nation, which I think was a government idea because they needed them to be weak,
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how that's going to
a good
connect. It also gives me the idea, like some thoughts of like Odin. Like I think Harold at a certain point was like being quiet about all this. I don't think a lot of people I'm sure that a lot of people didn't know about his connection and why he was doing this. So it might be something he was just like eating to better the country. And in the end, I think they state like he had the last laugh. Like Harold, they were like, "Oh, damn it, Harold! Like you didn't finish the job."
Yeah.
Like they were like really upset. So he might have like had a hand in that. But I think it's gonna like he's acting like Loki kind of, and he's gonna just connect with the world government somehow, and it's going to go from there.
I Yeah, I think it's a love story. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but the reason why is because like we know that that's typically. I mean, we see it with Senor Pink. That is what is a pacifying. Like Oda likes to use that where it's like a pacifying force that takes a hardened man and softens him up or whatever. I just maybe it's love, maybe it's a kid. I don't know. I mean, he has 2 kids, so maybe not a kid. Maybe it is love, but like he rips his horns off. I think he rips his horns off because he's deeply ashamed. What is he deeply ashamed of? Maybe he hurt some girl or whatever from a kingdom. Obviously, Haruden is smaller for a giant, right? But, and I think, even the nobility of the blood she's like a commoner or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is too cliche and Oda's going to go a completely different direction. But I can see like a theme of, him trying to move everything into a pacifist kind of place because of shame for past actions.
They did say that
love.
They did mention that the reason he did remove his horns was like kind of as the first step to becoming a pacifist.
Yes.
A nation, stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to be the actual truth, but
Sure.
I think that it does. For me, if I saw a giant with those like big horns, and compared to one with them ripped off, I would be like, okay, the one with them ripped off is less scary. So it definitely makes them. I don't know. It's the first step, I think.
Sure. Bash, let's get your final thoughts, bro.
Insert Kobe meme. Soft. Soft.
That's funny.
Anyways, my thoughts are I'm excited to see what happens. I want to see what these flashbacks do. Outside of the monster trio, Oda, my dog, I really need to see a power up from Usopp, Chopper, or Robin, big dog. That's what I'm looking for by the end of this arc. Freak with me. That's it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
Get a devil fruit, man.
I love it. Yeah. All right. And on that note, we're out. It's your boys, Anime Parlay. Thanks for listening. Obviously, we'll record probably Thursday. I think whenever the new chapter drops, we'll try to get it out early for you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, drop us comments. If you want to talk that shit, go right ahead. But hit that like button first. All right. Hey, it's been real. Peace.
Peace.